All right, welcome back to Blurry Creatures. We're going to do a quick update with Tim Alberino on sort of the mysterious things happening with the drones in New Jersey and appearing all over the place. So we're going to hop into that real quick and do kind of a current events. Tim's thoughts on what's happening with the drones. All right, welcome back to Blurry Creatures. We got Tim Alberino in the house with the Blurry cigar, branded Blurry cigar. Tim, welcome back to the podcast. We have been getting tons of emails and messages lately about the drone thing, and I thought it'd be fun to do a quick update and just ask you some questions about what's going on. Obviously, something is happening in New Jersey, and people are seeing huge drones, perhaps UFOs, maybe helicopters, maybe who knows what. But welcome back to Blurry Creatures. Fun little update, Tim, in the studio. What are your thoughts on what's going on right now in New Jersey?
Well, it's very cool to be in your new studio with you guys.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
How do you feel? You ready to play some? You remember the passcodes?
Brings me back to my childhood days. Old duck hunt over there.
Yeah. What's in the TV guide? You ready?
I'm not sure it's relevant anymore.
It's always relevant.
Ted Danson, is that his name? That's
Yeah.
Look at he's got brown hair.
Yeah.
You know, that's a good one.
But we've done a few updates in the past on the kind of you're sort of our go-to in terms of UFOs and what's happening. Obviously, there's congressional hearings. Things happen on the fly, and sometimes our show is sometimes a couple months behind in terms of when we record and release. So this will be fun to kind of address a current event that's happening right now. And I don't know anything about it because we've been so busy recording, producing, and that's the hard part about where we are is sometimes we don't have the hours and hours to sit around and dissect what's happening. What are these videos legit? What's happening? Obviously, there's an uproar. People don't know what to think right now. There's something happening, and maybe there's some confusion of conflating that maybe we're sending stuff out to observe what's happening, and people are saying that, and they're going, oh, those are the drones, but actually that could just be our own government looking into the phenomena or whatever. I don't know.
Well, the drone thing is complicated. It's a complicated situation that's been unfolding, I think, for about a month now, primarily on the East Coast and especially in the environs of New Jersey. And there's conflicting information. I mean, the government is saying, first and foremost, the government is saying these aren't ours, but they also don't pose a threat, but also we don't know where they're coming from or who's flying them. And so that in and of itself is very strange. And then you have all kinds of people, especially in New Jersey, who are taking cell phone pictures and videos of objects in the sky at nighttime, always at nighttime. So right away, we probably should assume that some of those are going to be conventional aircraft that's in the sky all the time. I mean, drones are not uncommon.
But are they that big? I mean,
Well, this is what I was going to say. So we can weed out some of those sightings that are probably just not remarkable, that are just your run-of-the-mill aircraft activity, helicopters. A drone and a helicopter at nighttime, if the helicopter's high up in the air, don't look that much different because there's nothing to see except for lights. So if we weed all of that out, we're left with a real phenomenon of these unidentified drones. And I use the term drones loosely here because we don't really know exactly what they are. Yeah. Although some people have seen, I heard a testimony of a guy who was working on a telephone pole, working up on a telephone pole or something like that. He was high up in the air. And he was in pretty close proximity to one of these things. And he said it had propellers. He said it was definitely like conventional drone type craft. But there's been reports that these things go dark when they try to put spotlights on them. They go dark. I haven't heard any reports of any of these drones engaging in extraordinary aerial maneuvers like shooting off at high rates of speed or disappearing or making right angle turns at high rates of speed. Of course, these maneuvers would be trademark of what we would call UFOs. So I'm not going to use the term UFOs for these things. I don't know what they are. Nobody really knows what they are. I suspect they are drones. Some of them are being reported, some people reporting that they're seeing objects the size of SUVs. So if these, in fact, are drones, then we're looking at very advanced drone technology, unmanned vehicle technology. Now, we have that kind of technology. The United States military has that kind of technology, and indeed, there are very large drones in the commercial market. I mean, there are people who own their own drone craft that they can get into and fly around in. But the difference is that those craft they can't stay aloft for very long without having to recharge. Even the smaller conventional drones can go out for 45 minutes or something at max, and they have to come back and be recharged. However, the United States military has Predator drones that we've used to great effect in the Middle East. And Predator drones are what's called over-the-horizon technology, where you don't have to have line of sight with those drones, whereas most drones on the commercial market, you have to have line of sight. But certainly the United States military has advanced drone technology. So does China. China may have even more advanced drone technology than we do. I heard I think it was a mayor of one of the towns in New Jersey who said that he had information that the drones had come from the Atlantic Ocean, that they deployed from the Atlantic Ocean, and they...
Like off an aircraft or something?
Something like that, and they advanced over the ocean and into the environs of New Jersey. So it's not exactly clear what everyone is claiming to see, although there are a lot of pictures now.
Right.
I've seen a lot of pictures and videos of these things. They do appear to be drones, to me, to my eyes. Some people have heard the blades. However, one thing that we should keep in mind, even though I think what we're looking at are drones, we should keep in mind that in the sightings, UFO sightings that have occurred previously in the United States and elsewhere, there has been a phenomenon of what's called mimicking, where sometimes UFOs seem to be mimicking conventional aircraft. That happened at Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana, where I live, years ago, where you had the nuclear facility there. The warheads were actually disarmed. The facility was shut down by UFOs, a UFO or several UFOs.
How do they mimic? Do they?
And this particular UFO or these UFOs in that instance, actually, it was reported that the observers at the base heard the sound of like blades whipping through the air, like a helicopter or something. So many ufologists believe that sometimes UFOs are, for whatever reason, mimicking conventional aircraft. So that's out there. I'm not sure that that's what's happening here. These drones, these objects are displaying all kinds of different lights, but everything I've seen looks conventional. In other words, it's the same kind of light patterns that we see on aircraft and on drones. The blinking lights, the same light patterns. I haven't seen anything anomalous yet, although we're looking at these craft at night. So again, all we really see are...
Well, it's weird because a lot of the cryptid reports that we hear, there's a lot of mimicking that goes on. I don't know if it's probably unrelated, but the creatures will do that. They will pretend there's something else, and then it just seems like...
Well, Tim, what do you make of what the government's putting out there right now? Because I think that's always an interesting juxtaposition when we sort of try to analyze and evaluate what's going on. What are they telling us, right? So, I mean, to this morning off the press is Senator Richard Blumenthal is saying that we should be doing some very urgent intelligence analysis and take them out of the skies, so shoot them down, especially if they're flying over airports and military bases. They're saying that these didn't come, the Coast Guard's saying they didn't come off a vessel. There's no foreign vessels. They've essentially said they rule out it being a hostile adversary or a hostile nation, China, whoever you want to be flying these. And so then we're really just left with what? Either they're denying it and it's us, or it's some, Jersey Shore guys with drones that are just are
with
hoaxing.
a lot of money though.
Yeah.
Right? Gym tan laundry drones, right?
What is a bus-sized drone or a car-sized drone? That's worth probably $50,000-$60,000 for something like that.
Oh, much more than that. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Predator drones cost millions and millions of dollars.
And that's what we've been fighting wars with. Honestly, this is like sort of the.
It's not like some dude could be having a hoax. He'd have to have a lot of money.
Those are fixed wing drones, Predator drones. However, some of these drones have reportedly, and this is coming from witnesses on the ground, civilian witnesses, reportedly some of these drones have hovered for extended periods of time, even hours. I don't know if that's true. If it is true, and it wouldn't surprise me if it is.
Is that possible? Is the technology there for hours?
Yeah, I think that we have technology like that, and I think the Chinese have it.
Okay.
Russians probably have some of that, but I think the Chinese are probably leading the world in drone technology. And the reason why I say that is, have you seen the incredible displays that the Chinese have been doing with their drones? Like they make dragons in the sky, breathing fire, and all kinds of different things.
Fireworks show, kind of.
Yeah, they do. And they have incredible technology in China, and that's civilian technology. So I have, and it's just my gut feeling.
Are these
that
traditional energy sources, or there's some new energy?
Yeah, these would be conventional energy sources, but very advanced batteries. So there's three explanations that I can think of. Okay, let's start with the most prosaic explanation, which would be they're ours. They're our own government. Some agency of the government is flying these drones around for some unknown purpose. Okay, and we can talk about why that might be in a minute. The second option is that we're looking at a foreign actor. That these drones are coming from. There's one of three sources where these drones would be coming from. They would be coming from China, Russia, or Iran. Now, Iran has deployed drones against Israel, drone swarms against Israel. And drone warfare, it's
like a new thing.
Yeah, that is a modern warfare tactic now.
Well, we're seeing that, I mean, in Ukraine. The Russia and Ukraine war has been like the one you can watch. I mean, of course, Obama is the famous drone deployer. Like we've been fighting wars for the last 12 years by unmanned aircraft, right? This is the way. This is the war on terror, right? Like the idea that we can fight these wars by proxy via drone unmanned vehicles. But what we've seen out of Ukraine and Russia is fascinating because these look like Radio Shack behind me, kind of drones that they just send in, and they literally are just designed to be personnel destroyers. They go and they kill people one by one, which is terrifying. But also, this is how wars
anti-tank.
Yes, they're being fought this way.
Yeah. Well, the scary thing about drones, while we're talking about the second option, foreign actor, drones can deploy anything. They can deploy missiles. Predator drones. They can deploy all kinds of projectiles. They could carry a nuke.
Yes.
And what's probably even more scarier, I think, in this scenario is they could easily deploy an aerosoled virus, pathogen. They could easily do that. I think that's one of the most
so these could be like chemtrail drones, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but instead of just the typical chemtrail chemicals, they could be deploying a dangerous pathogen, like anthrax, for example. I mean, that to me is why this is so disconcerting. That's the second option, a hostile foreign actor, right? And again, I said China, Russia, or Iran. And understand if it's Iran, then it's Chinese technology. Iran's not making these drones themselves. They're getting the technology from China and Russia, but I think primarily from China. And then the third option is UFOs, UAP, that this is not a human phenomenon, that these are, it's related to the UFO phenomenon and NIH, NHI, non-human intelligence. Those are the three options on the table. Now, I personally am persuaded thus far that what we're looking at is actually a foreign actor. And I think if it's a foreign actor, it explains why the government is being so mum about it, and in fact, more than that, are misleading the public, if in fact they are misleading the public, because they don't want to create panic, first and foremost. They don't want to admit that the technology being deployed is they're having a difficult time tracking it and taking it down. There are reasons why they wouldn't shoot this technology out of the sky. There's two reasons. One reason is because it may be carrying a dangerous payload, and they don't want to ignite it. Right? If it's carrying a pathogen or something like that, or if they don't know what's on these drones, then that would be a reason not to blow it up, right? Especially if it's got some sort of nuclear device on it. Okay, that's a really good reason to be careful if you're the government. But then the second thing is, let's assume for a moment that it is China. Then what you're looking at is an act of war. And essentially, if the Pentagon were to acknowledge that the Chinese are flying drones, even if they're not hostile, because one of the things even if the intent is not hostile, it is, because it is, no matter what's happening, if this is a foreign actor, this is an incursion into our airspace by a foreign actor, so that is technically a hostile position. It's not the word I want. Posture is the word I'm looking for. It's a hostile posture. But we don't want to go to open war right now with China. I mean, that's what that would amount to. If we were to say, okay, this is China, they are hovering over some of our military installations, infrastructure, because there's been reports that these drones are hovering over important infrastructure and secured airspace, then this is an act of war, and it would mean war. It would mean world war. Actually, is what that would amount to. So I think there would definitely be a hesitancy on the part of the government. And one last thing I would like to say is, aside from the payloads that these drones can carry, including, as we said, nuclear devices, they certainly can be equipped with all manner of surveillance and reconnaissance technology, deep underground, penetrating radar. I have a drone that has deep underground radar, penetrating radar.
A dumb drone? You call it a dumb drone? Looking for dumbs?
A dumb drone operated by dumb people. So,
and who's to say that like all the above isn't happening? And do you think UFOs can sort of commandeer some of these narratives and sort of throw some smokescreen out there and get us riled up? I don't know. Like
whoever is perpetuating this phenomenon, human or otherwise, wants to be seen. They want it. It's conspicuous. There's lights flashing in the sky. They're flying at low altitudes. They're hovering around. It's all over the news. They want to be seen. It's a display. Okay?
Yeah.
It is a display. Now, there is a possibility it is some element of the government, as I said. And Lou Elizondo said this morning. I was listening to Lou this morning, and he said that maybe, and this is just a hypothetical, maybe some agency of the government has learned about a threat and they're looking for something, they're scanning for something. So it could be our own technology, or these drones are responding to hostile drones or UFO activity, and so you have both of those. You could have both of those things in the mix, and so you see why there's so much confusion around this, because the government. Listen, I'll tell you one thing. One thing I think I can say with certainty is that elements of the United States military know exactly what these things are. There's no way they don't. We have radar. We can track these things. We can see in infrared. We have satellites. We can look at these things from space.
Sure.
In both infrared and with high resolution cameras, night vision, thermal cameras. We know what they are. That it's a lie that we don't. That's a lie.
Yeah.
We know there's elements of the United States government. Now, I will say that I have some friends in Congress, and they haven't been briefed on this yet. They don't know what this is. And the governor of New Jersey, what's his name? The governor of New Jersey, I can't remember his name. He's upset right now because nobody is giving him any answers. The mayors of these towns are upset. They're not getting any answers. The government is playing dumb.
Is this related to the election at all?
Well, reportedly, drones have been hovering over Donald Trump's golf course, I think in New Jersey. Is it in New Jersey? There's been drones sighted hovering over Mar-a-Lago. Now, those could be just some idiots flying their own personal drones over Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. Listen, where we stand right now in society with drone technology, it's very, very difficult to monitor and control drone activity. Anybody can fly a drone anywhere, and it will take the government. If you fly a drone over Area 51, they'll probably just shoot it down. But you could probably get that, especially at nighttime, you could probably penetrate pretty far onto that property before that drone gets knocked out of the sky.
It's an interesting point, Tim. I've got a buddy who is in one of the four-letter agencies who was telling me that his intelligence, the briefing they were given for protective services, is that the new angles for assassination attempts
drones
are going to be drone, and they are actually equipped with technology to shoot them out of the sky, not like conventional weaponry, but these guns that disable and pull down. But that's what it's going towards. It's going towards these are going to be used as assassination devices. And just a caveat, what I love about this conversation is we did this with the face peelers. We talked about this like this, right? We talked, and I like the pragmatic aspect because it's in the spaces that we and you and us are in. It feels like these things, this pendulum swings so far. This is blue beam, it's a psyop, to this is nothing, right? Or
Amazon delivering
everything
packages.
in between, right? But to your point, though, it made me think of something, Tim.
Yeah.
Do you remember when the spy balloon flew all the way across our country, and they didn't shoot it down?
No, they didn't shoot it down.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, they did at the end. Didn't they
Over
shoot
the Atlantic.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. And there's a lot of noise being made in the media about those balloons. And there is now. The media is making a lot of noise about these. I saw it this morning in the hotel lobby. They were talking about these drones. So the media is paying attention to the drones, but there's nothing to report. What are they going to report? Nobody's giving anybody any answers. I heard there's a lot of stuff floating around out there. Who knows if any of this is verified or authentic? I heard that it has been announced to, again, take this with a grain of salt, to the citizens of New Jersey that it is a federal offense. It will be considered a federal offense to shoot any of these drones out of the sky. Now, I can, on one hand, I can understand that because if there are very large objects and you shoot it down, it's going to land somewhere, and if it lands on the highway in traffic, it could kill somebody. So I get it. That makes sense. However, this entire thing is very bizarre. And I am going to say, and you mentioned the face peeler thing, I am going to say I'm getting a little bit of face peeler vibe here with this whole thing. It's kind of in the background. It's nagging me. I'm getting a face peeler vibe here. I'm not saying that that's what this is, obviously not face peelers, but in the same way that when I went out there to investigate that phenomenon last year out in the Amazon, these assailants who were attacking this village, they were using a very advanced form of what we might describe as drone platform technology. I don't know what the technical term is. Hover technology. They were using an advanced form of that, much more advanced than any of the hover stuff that you see out there today. It was something like that, but more advanced. And so in the same way, these drones are something like the drones that we're familiar with, but not exactly. They're more advanced. So I'm as I said, I'm getting a little bit of a face peeler vibe here, and who knows?
Well, that's a great. I think the gist of that episode, in terms of what I took away from that, is that you have something happening, and then you have sort of this reaction, and then a bunch of things kind of come out that distract you from there is something happening, right? And I feel like you pick any rabbit hole in our space, you go down it. It's like oftentimes. Like go down the 9/11 rabbit hole. There was something going on that day, but then there's all this other stuff that happens to distract you from some key elements of the story that can actually blow the whistle on some nefarious activity. And I think if there is a nefarious thing happening here, wouldn't the government or some of these people who don't want this stuff to come out send out a bunch of drones and distract the people, and then we have an easy explanation of what's going on?
Yes, that's a good point. Let's say, for example, that there is legitimate UFO activity happening at large scale in mass over New Jersey. I don't know if that's true or not, but for the sake of argument, let's say that's true. So one of the strategies, if you are in the intelligence community and you have to take care of the situation, a good strategy might be deploying a bunch of drones to obfuscate the reality of what's actually happening. Put a bunch of drones in the air, and then later you can say, after concluding our investigation, we determined that it's drones. Drones,
Amazon was delivering Christmas packages early, and nothing to see here, everybody.
Right.
Go home.
So that certainly is in play as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have like I said, it could be a both-and situation. You could have legitimate UFO activity afoot and drones being deployed for whatever reason, either to obfuscate the situation, throw in this wild card just to confuse people, or it could be government drones being deployed to try and
muddy the water.
Capture some.
Yeah, you muddy the waters, right? It's just,
exactly.
It becomes confusing. You're just throwing a bunch of paper clips along with the, when you're metal detecting, you put a bunch of other metal. It's what we talked about with Diana Pasulka, right? When she reportedly went to the UFO crash, what the government did after their retrieval is they spread tin cans. Yeah. Everywhere, so that if you were looking
with a metal detector, beep beep beep, everywhere you go, you're
it's
gonna get.
It's the same idea, right?
Yeah. Well, that and every rabbit hole we go down, it seems like all the above is the answer. There's always a bunch of stuff happening. It's never really one clear answer. There's never really one specific. Oh, this is exactly what's happening. You look at even some of these, just major events like Pearl Harbor or anything. Pick anything, and there's always a bunch of weird stuff happening. And it's like we know, but we don't know. And we're never sort of caught off guard. And I think the government obviously knows what's going on. Like you said, they have yeah. But, so it makes it, unfortunately, it just kind of fuels the TikTok, Instagram generation of everyone has a theory and a post. And it's just, nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah. Let's say, and just to illustrate your point, Luke, let's say that I have a ping pong ball here, and it's colored red, and this ping pong ball represents some truth, some undeniable, concrete truth. But it's going to get out there, this truth, because of the nature of the information age. I know this truth is going to get out there. So I can either go and try and capture it or conceal it, but that becomes too conspicuous. The public then begins to catch on, right? Yeah. A better strategy, and this happens all the time, is let's say that this red ping pong ball represents the truth, and I'm going to throw it to you, and you're going to catch it. In other words, I'm relaying this information to you, and you're going to catch it. So I'm some whistleblower putting it out there on the internet. You're a consumer. Here comes the truth. What does the government do? They take a dozen red ping pong balls or a dozen ping pong balls and throw it at you at the same time.
Yeah, so a red herring.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to differentiate between the signal and the noise at that point. And even in this case, there's a lot of noise going on from the government, from the people capturing the drones in the sky, and then from the internet. I mean, Twitter is ablaze with all kinds of conspiracy theories. And the one I think we should probably highlight here is Bluebeam. Anytime anything extraordinary happens in the sky, you have all the Bluebeam birds chirping. Bluebeam this, Bluebeam that. Everybody comes out with the Bluebeam explanation, and Project Bluebeam is
holograms.
Basically, I mean, it's different things. There's no one thing that Project Bluebeam is, but it began actually as a fake second coming of Christ, as a conspiracy to fake that, which actually I don't discount that. I think that may be in play in the future. But primarily when people hear Project Bluebeam, they think of a fake UFO invasion. So what in their mind, a lot of these people don't believe UFOs are actually real. It's all our own stuff anyway. Or you got guys like Stephen Greer who think all the aliens are real, but they're all good guys.
Right.
And the bad guys are the human beings. And so what we have all of this technology out there that's ours, that we've derived perhaps from aliens, but we're the ones who are using it for nefarious purposes. And Project Bluebeam would be a combination of technologies, including holographic technologies, to fake an alien invasion. So every time something happens, Bluebeam, 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 Bluebeam. That's like it's just permanently fixed into people's minds. That this is a PSYOP. This is Project Bluebeam.
Well, PSYOPs are the equivalent to a different type of ping pong ball that you're throwing out there, right?
That's true.
It's like we have physical PSYOPs. We send up the drones, and then we put these theories into the public as well to keep people from actually figuring out what's going on. And it's just a different form of psychological warfare that I think a lot of people in our spaces, and Luke and I are constantly dealing with this, and the criticisms is that we're not seeing it clearly because we're not down this PSYOP rabbit hole. I think there are so many PSYOPs in this space, and it's really hard to make sense of anything all the time. But I didn't think about that, and that I just connecting the dots that it's physical and it's ideological we can fight the war if we're the information gatekeepers. Throw these ideas out there. People are going to be down the wrong rabbit holes. They're going to think they're going to think the UFO phenomenon doesn't even exist. It's just all smoke and mirrors. It's all holograms. It's not a real thing. And we've got a quarter of the population confused.
Yeah, you have both sides of that equation.
Yeah.
I mean, you have people now saying, see, all UFO sightings are just drones.
Right.
Exactly.
And then you have people on the other side saying, see, this is Project Bluebeam, and the government is faking UFOs with drones. And, the reality is that nobody really knows what's going on except for, I would say, particular agencies, as I said earlier, particular agencies at the Defense Department know exactly what's going on. There's no way they don't.
So
there's no way they don't.
Here's the last question. If all this stuff is coming out in Congress, all these obviously you're a part of that. You're talking to congressmen about that. Is this trying to maybe throw some water on that fire of like, yeah, there's just drones, guys. There's no, you know.
I was going to ask that in maybe just a different way a little bit. Like, say by the time that this episode comes out, we know what it is. They tell us, or they tell us what it is, right? How do you think this fits in? It's kind of as Nate was saying. How do you think this fits in this trajectory? It seems, right. We talked about Congress and oversight committees. We talk about you talked to congressmen. We talked pre-roll about SCIFs and disclosure of what people know, right? Sort of this pathway to disclosure, whether or not that actually happens. But where do you think this might fit? So let's just say this comes out and they've said, this is what it is, guys. It's a bunch of rednecks, which I love the videos of, like, the rednecks that are shooting down the cop drones. And it's like two guys in flannel. Yeah. And the last picture is them like shooting it down. Like, I mean, but let's say by the time this comes out, they tell us what it is, quote, right? It's a foreign actor. It's just our stuff. It's nothing to see here. But if that's the case, and if you suggest or hypothesize perhaps that the government knows what this is, or is at sort of the impetus of it, how do you think this fits maybe in, if you're just prognosticating a bit, in sort of this arc that we seem to be on towards disclosure, whether it be government oversight committees in Congress, or the idea that, because it's weirdly feels like part of the timeline, whether you like it or not, right? And they may discredit the whole thing, but do you think this fits in sort of the meta narrative, if you will, of the UFO disclosure, potential disclosure?
It depends what the explanation for the phenomenon is. I'm developing right now a theory. It's more of a suspicion that we all know that back in 2017, the New York Times published their explosive article on the Nimitz incident, and that sort of got the ball rolling for everything we're seeing happening now in the realm of disclosure. That resulted in the two hearings we've had at the congressional level, and really has increased public awareness and interest in the topic of UFOs. And the government, it led to the formation of the government's official UFO investigative body, AARO.
Right.
I'm wondering if what happened, let's go all the way back to the 20-teens. The Pentagon knows that the Nimitz footage is going to leak, or has leaked already, to journalists. Okay, so let's say I'm a government operative. I know the Nimitz incident video that was captured on the gunship of that Hornet fighter jet, that legitimate video with no conventional explanation, that's beyond any sort of conventional explanation, that is going to go public. If I'm thinking long-term strategy, what do? I do exactly what we talked about before with the ping pong balls. Rather than try and shut that down, they used to do that, back in the early days, back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, going all the way actually back to the 40s. They would just try and shut it down and even kill the people who were trying to.
There was like three channels there was like three news channels.
Yeah, exactly. It was very easy. It was
very
there weren't cell phones in everybody's hands and all of that. It was a different world. So what am I going to do? A good strategy would be, okay, let's caretake this narrative. Let's cater this narrative. Let's be in control of it. The Nimitz video is going to be out there. Let's not deny it, but let's also leak this one. Let's leak So there's A, B, and C videos coming out. Let's make sure one of these videos that we are going to leak to the press, that it gets clumped together with the real one, and let's give this thing legs. Let's let the New York Times report on it, and let's allow these hearings to go forward, and let's talk about these videos. And then, in addition to that, let's create a UFO investigative body, AARO, and let's give the appearance that we're taking all of this very seriously.
Yeah.
UAPs, we don't know what they are, and we're investigating. And then, when this thing gets far enough, let's have our investigative body, AARO, debunk the one that we planted. That's all it takes to dissuade public interest to hamper public interest in the topic, and to dissuade further congressional investigation. If you can just debunk one of them, and that one may in fact be the Go Fast video. There's 3 primary videos that came out, and the Pentagon acknowledged that all of these are real. They're real videos. They didn't say what they are, what they depict, but they're real. You have Go Fast gimbal and the TikTok video, the Nimitz incident. TikTok, there's nothing that they can do with that. I mean, that was captured. It was locked on by a fighter jet. It's mathematically substantiated in terms of the speed that thing was moving, the size, everything. That is just scientifically confirmed. That one you can't debunk.
Right.
But Go Fast is something different. Now, Go Fast may be, and Go Fast is the one where it's just like an object that is seen moving above the ocean. That's different. That's a different context. And so my suspicion at this point is that Go Fast was planted, and that this entire narrative was catered so that the government itself, through its own investigative body, could come along at a particular point, which is happening now, and say, oh, we can't debunk this one yet, the Nimitz incident, the Tic Tac, but we have resolved this one that came in the package.
You're planting doubt.
And that alone is enough exactly to plant doubt in everyone's minds, to give all of the debunkers ammunition, to quell, to some extent, interest in the topic, to make congressmen who are investigating maybe step back from it and say, wait a minute, I don't want to look like an idiot here. I don't want to look like a tinfoil conspiracy nut. It's going to come back to bite me. That is my suspicion. I conveyed this suspicion the other day in a phone call with a congressional member of that committee, of the UAP committee.
Yeah.
And I explained to him everything that I just said to you. And he texted me back a few minutes later and said, I just spoke to David Grush, and he says that's happening. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
So we have to be very careful here.
Bird dogging it, Alberino.
The government is very crafty. When I say the government, I'm talking about the intelligence agencies.
Yes.
I'm talking about elements of the Pentagon. They're very crafty.
Yeah.
They're going to get ahead of the narrative way in advance, and they're going to cater that narrative, and they're going to ensure that they get the result they want. We have to be very, very careful.
Yeah, they create the crisis. They own the crisis investigation team. They hire the crisis actors to come in and say all the thing.
That's
so
right.
it's like it's a 10-level psyop where they own all the pieces.
They own all the pieces.
They
and
own
the
the
one
good
that
guy.
they
They
don't,
own the bad guy.
The one that they can't
They
control, it doesn't matter because they've got so much
Noise.
Yeah.
They've got so much noise. That signal is drowned out in the noise.
Well, you've heard it here third from the Blurry Basement, because you can't control the information these days. It's out there, and something's going on in New Jersey, and I love these discussions, Tim, that we can kind of talk about these things. It's so hard because people look to us like as if we know, and I think a lot of the times we just sit back and wait and kind of go, I don't know what to think about what's going on right now, and I think everyone has an opinion, and especially a lot of these channels, they just want to say this is definitively what it is, but I think we try our best to go, I don't know, let's look at it. But it's always good to have you in the studio, and obviously it seems as though, Luke, every time something's happening, you're here. Either we're doing an interview about something else, or today
And I
you're
just
actually-
magically appear.
It's like, yeah, you're like
with a
the
cigar in hand.
Yeah, exactly.
you're like the butler in Mr. Deeds. Like, I'm here. You're like, there's Tim.
There's Tim. Well, we I don't know if we got any answers, but something's happening.
Well, there are no answers right now.
Right.
And anyone who thinks they have answers is
Watch
just
out.
kidding themselves. Yeah, watch out. Seriously, watch out for those people because this situation is so confusing. How can you resolve something when all you have are pictures of lights in the sky? Again, I will state that so far as I'm aware, none of these objects have displayed extraordinary aerial maneuvers. No right angles at high rates of speed. They're not disappearing. They are going dark, but that's easy. Is it hard to turn off? Is it hard to program a drone to turn its lights off if there's a light source that's focused on it? No, that's not hard to do. Civilians could probably do that with drones that are available in the commercial market. So let's be careful here. So far, I personally have not seen, and I'm holding out for more information.
Yeah.
Before I make a determinative statement here, but I have not yet seen any kind of aerial maneuvering that would suggest that we're looking at a legitimate UFO phenomenon here. However, that's on the shelf. I personally believe at this time, with the information that I have, observing the phenomenon, talking to different people, I think what we're looking at is a foreign actor that is making incursions into our airspace. The Pentagon does not want to. If the Pentagon admits that, by the way, doesn't that make them look really stupid?
Right. It's the China balloon again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Pentagon is not going to do that ever. They're not going to tell the public anything that makes them look stupid or incompetent or weak, as you said.
Yeah.
And so I personally believe what we're looking at here is an incursion by a foreign actor with exceedingly advanced drone technology, albeit conventional. And it's likely, in my estimation, China, Russia, or Iran. Russia is the least likely actor here, in my estimation, is China or Iran using Chinese technology. Now, that's not 100%. That's not my final assessment. I'm so far persuaded that that's what we're looking at.
Well, the technology's gotten a lot better since 1985 in the basement. I remember my brother got a helicopter on a wire from his birthday, and it would fly up maybe 5 feet off the ground, and then it would flip back and hit you, and those blades hurt like nothing. I mean, so he would chase us around the backyard with this helicopter on a string this was like 1987, and that thing would hurt like heck.
So we can rule out the Irish. It's not the Irish drones. Those guys aren't doing it.
The Irish drones, yeah. But it's confusing. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for coming on Blurry Creatures and giving some of our listeners an update. And we'll keep an eye on this one, and we'll see what happens. But you can get this book right now. Where can we get it, Tim? And what are the other parts of the book that we can get? Throw a plug out there.
We can get this book at blurrycreatures.com.
And signed copies.
Signed copies. That's right. We are. We're going to wear our hands out later signing a whole lot of copies of this book.
Yeah, but what I like about our copy or our edition, with bias, of course, is that we talked a lot about the book of the Watchers, right? The first portion of this is really applicable to Genesis 6 and what's referenced in the New Testament by the author of Jude and by 1 Peter. But there's also commentary there. So a lot of the ideas that we espouse today and expanded upon today and addressed today within this book are a lot of those thoughts, and Tim, that you have about these things are also written along with the connections to the scriptures. So you can get a lot of this as you read with a commentary on the Book of the Watchers and blurrycreatures.com, also Amazon. You can
get
find
it on Amazon.
Yeah,
we have our audio version out, which, by the way, is read by the very talented John Moore, who's a professional voice actor. You're not going to hear better. We have the best, I think we can say this confidently, we have the best audio version of the Book of Enoch anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just, John did a phenomenal job, John Moore. It's just like butter in your ears listening to that.
So you don't want to read? You can listen to it. You can listen to the dulcet tones of John Moore. And
that's right.
No, or if you want to read it digitally, of course, you can get the Kindle,
that's
right,
the ebook version, also on Amazon. And it's an important conversation, right? I mean, I think the first episode we talked a lot about some of the initial pushbacks too. We did the macro narrative, but also like it's not canon and it's not the things that people have these initial dangerous monikers with, right? And then also a lot of that's addressed in your introduction.
In the
So
introduction, that's what I was going to say.
where did the Book of Enoch come from?
That's right.
Why do we think we can trust it?
What
right?
did the early church fathers think about the book?
100%.
By the way, the introduction is about those things. It's not about Eden and all the other things we were riffing on today. It's about the Book of Enoch. I wrote the introduction, and it is. You are going to discover why it was rejected, what happened to it, where it was discovered. There's a very interesting story right at the beginning that most people don't know about the man who discovered it. He happened to be a Freemason of the Scottish Rite, and he was in Ethiopia when he discovered it, and he might have been looking for the Ark of the Covenant. So there's a very interesting story at the beginning, and I walk through the dating of First Enoch, the difference between First, Second, Third. This contains all three, by the way. Our book contains all three for those who are interested to read Second and Third Enoch. So it's a very scholarly approach in both the introduction and the commentary. So people who are interested in just like you were saying, just want to know what the Book of Enoch is, where it came from, all of that. It's here. It's in this book too.
And I like to remind people too that the oldest copies that we have of the books of the Bible, by far and away, come from Qumran and the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Fragments of the Book of Enoch in Aramaic.
Yeah, so of the Bible. Like
the
oldest copy of Isaiah.
That's right.
There's fragments of Numbers found from 650 BC, but these predate Christ, and the second most copied scroll by the Essenes and found in Qumran is the Book of Enoch. So
that's right.
Everyone who likes to dismiss Enoch as a modern phenomena or as something that is post Christ or lifted from the New Testament, that really blew that narrative up. So not only is there provenance back to BC times before Christ, but it also, at least to the Essenes, was such paramount importance that it was one of the most copied read books by that sect of Judaism then.
And also, what I think will surprise a lot of people is the remarkable Christological content in First Enoch, specifically in the Book of Parables, which is one of those older sections that I was referring to before. A lot of people aren't aware of this. We documented in the book. You will see how profound prophecies pertaining specifically to the Son of Man, i.e. Jesus of Nazareth, are in the Book of Enoch. And by the way, in Revelation, what does the angel tell John? That the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. So if you have a document written long before the birth of Christ, testifying of Christ with the same degree of accuracy of those verses from Isaiah and elsewhere in the Old Testament that describe the death of Christ, the same kind of accuracy is in the parables of Enoch, testifying of Jesus of Nazareth. This is one of the primary reasons why the Jews rejected it, why it didn't get into the canon of the Jews. And this is one of the primary reasons why many of the church fathers defended it, including Tertullian.
I love it. Well, thanks, Tim. I think one of the best ways to interpret the story, and especially when we're reading the macro narrative, is in familiar terms of, that there's a family involved. It's always about this idea of the family and the Son of God being, having a relationship with his Father. And I think that, was something that the watchers wanted and they lusted after. And it's this whole narrative of family that I think is lost in the church sometimes, because like you said, we conceptualize these things as far away. They're not here. There's no, connection between heaven and earth, but there is, there's a great connection. I think that's what Eden was. And I appreciate these conversations. I think it's been a huge part of our podcast from the get-go. I think we had you on episode 19 from the beginning, and here we are, almost 300 episodes in. So thank you so much for coming on our podcast, coming into the basement, the Blurry basement, hanging out with us, getting a little nostalgia, but also, breathing another round of interest into this ancient story that we're all a part of, and the weird blurry things that people still experience to this day, whether it's abductions, UFOs, Bigfoot, all this stuff that it's on the fringe that we talk about here. So thanks, Tim, and
thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
We'll see you in Costa Rica. We have a few more tickets available.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah.
So
if you want to join us in Costa Rica, and this is like Costa Rica. What's happening here?
Yeah.
I mean, it was up with Hawaiian shirts, and they just as hot in here too.
I think we have about 7 or 8 tickets left. So if you want to join us in Costa Rica, go to blurrycreatures.com. Main page, just hit the link. There's a banner there. There's a few tickets left. You can come hang out with us. We're going to be doing a lot of these discussions on the beach. We're going to be having more time to hang out, kind of like a blurry vacation, if you will. And thanks, Tim. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Of course.